Assignment Earth. The Enterprise goes back in time to 1963 and they try to prevent a failed rocket launch. Or I'm not sure if it's a failed rocket launch or a missile, because Gary 7, this episode, when they go back in time, they discover they're not the only time travelers. The Enterprise, when it goes back in time, they discover on 1963 Earth that they're not the only time travelers, that there is these other interstellar agents, and they come from another planet of humans, and they came to make sure humanity doesn't get out of control. And some other agents are Gary 7, and in the episode he's looking for two other agents, 201, and I don't know what the other number was. And they discover in the episode that those two other interstellar agents died in a car crash. And you know, Gene Roddenberry was going to make this into its own show, right? Called Assignment Earth, about the interstellar agents who come and are assigned to Earth, basically, to look over humanity. Uh, that spinoff never came, but what's strange is that in Picard, in the Picard show, right, on Paramount Plus, he has a Romulan friend who turns into a cat, just like Gary Seven's black cat who turned into a woman. So he has this Romulan that can turn into a black cat in the Picard series. And she has the same teleportation cube with the smoke, the same teleportation technology that Gary 7 had. By the way, if you're watching Assignment Earth, watch the remaster. The remaster looks incredible. Alright, because, yeah, you can watch the 1963 one, gritty, grindhousey. But I mean, the Star Trek remasters look incredible. So I always say, when you're watching these episodes, rewatch the remasters. So another funny thing about Gary 7 is that apparently the other agents had hired a secretary, and the secretary doesn't know that they're like basically aliens. So he tells her that he's working for the CIA. I didn't know the CIA was around in the 60s. Um, but it was. It was around in the 60s, the CIA. And um, so Gary 7 tells the secretary that his other two agents hired, that he's part of the CIA. And his mission right now on Earth is they're going to launch a warhead. And he has to, on the missile base, he has to arm the warhead so that it blows up in space, basically, and it doesn't hit whatever the target is, and to start like some sort of war. And that's that famous scene that you see Gary 7 working on the missile with his little cat. So the Picard series referenced Gary 7. That's why I went back and I rewatched Assignment Earth, because I was like, you know what? I've seen this technology and everything before. And Gary 7 kind of is like an Elon Musk type of character. He had all this futuristic technology, like computer. It's really weird that Star Trek predicted all this future technology, because Gary 7 literally has a desktop computer before there was computers, where he could explore the universe. But this was actually the season 2 finale of Star Trek: The Original Series. So, I really love the Picard show. You know, the Picard show. Really loved it. Um, and they were gonna plan on making a Gary Seven spinoff if Picard was successful. But we've seen now that they decided not to go with the spin-off Star Trek Legacy, and they decided to take the route of Star Trek Discovery and do Star Trek Academy. Um Star Trek Discovery was a really bad show. It was like this show on Paramount Plus, and it had nothing to do with Star Trek. They tried to do everything against Gene Roddenberry. Like, it was like nobody who had ever seen Star Trek, and like if they did it, they tried to go back to some storylines in the original series, but it was done horribly, horribly. So Star Trek Discovery, Section 31, those are complete insults. But because when you think about the original series, Star Trek the original series, it changed the world. Even though it was on for 3 seasons, the reruns, you have to understand, still to this day, people watch it. But when it also came out in the 1960s, Star Trek was a revolution before Star Wars. Okay? And it's so different from Star Wars, too. The original Star Trek. Because you see a lot of people now talking about Next Generation, talking about Deep Space Nine. Personally, for me, my favorite one was Enterprise. Uh, and Voyager. Enterprise and Voyager were my favorites after the original series. But, you know, I enjoyed The Next Generation, and I also enjoyed Deep Space Nine, but Discovery was awful. But if they wanted to do a series of Gary Seven, right, of Gary Seven, they should totally do it, because it could be its own thing and tie into Star Trek whenever they wanted to tie it into Star Trek. If they wanted to tie into Star Trek, they could. If they didn't, they didn't. Or they could do both. They could tie it into Star Trek in the movie, and the show could be its standalone thing. But you have to understand, Star Trek was so big, it had its own hotel in Las Vegas with a ride in it. That's how big. They had their own conventions. So it's really important what projects get greenlit for Star Trek. You know, you can't just make any CGI cartoon and slap the title Star Trek on it. Star Trek Prodigy. And you know, I enjoyed Star Trek Lower Decks, but this last season of Star Trek Lower Decks, man, they did some really insulting things to some characters. And the last season was really huge of Lower Decks because they crossed over with Strange New Worlds. And this past season of Lower Decks, you know, didn't have that. Section 31 was really bad, but if there was a project that I want to see from like Star Trek and everything, is a Gary 7 remake. I want to see a Gary 7 remake, and I want to see Star Trek Legacy, you know, because they had continued the story in Picard. But I also think Gary 7, he could have a movie, he could have a show. There's so many spin-offs in Star Trek that could be their own thing, especially in the original series. This is one of them. That's why I wanted to cover this episode. Kirk and Spock, they're the ones who get on the planet. They're the ones who team up with Gary 7. Gary 7 gets beamed on the Enterprise by Scotty. he convinces Scotty to send him back because only he's the one who could stop this warhead from detonating. And it's kind of like a crossover. And they just never did the show. Like, you know how we have the canceled unseen pilot from Star Trek? I don't think they ever filmed Gary Seven's pilot. It was only like in the script stage. And you know the that's why I love the Picard series. The Picard series went back and referenced that. So I was intrigued, and I wanted to bring that up because I didn't see anybody talking about this from Picard. So Assignment Earth is definitely one of my favorite episodes of the original series, of Star Trek, the original series. So check it out. And also follow me on Rumble. Like my video, comment your thoughts. And it's also so important to not only follow me on YouTube, but follow me on X, and it really helps me out if you follow me on Rumble. Rumble is great because Rumble doesn't censor like YouTube. And I'm on YouTube because YouTube is better if you want a global audience. And I'm on Rumble because Rumble doesn't censor like YouTube and some of these other sites do. And then also follow me on X, because on X is where the latest news and everything is coming about right now. So on X I'm Trek Galaxy 1138, and on Rumble I'm Trek Galaxy. So, and also you could stream Assignment Earth on Paramount Plus.